This is the Advanced Passenger Train, or APT. In 1981, this high-speed tilting train was poised to revolutionise railway travel. But the British government lost faith in their pioneering engineers, and in 1986 the APT was abandoned. In the 1800s, British railway pioneers were national heroes. From this crumbling factory in Newcastle, George and Robert Stephenson built the machines that changed the world. Soon these rusting winches will be buffed up and the site restored with lottery money. Gambling on leisure and heritage is now a safer bet than on iron and steel. But at one time in these drawing offices, Robert Stephenson designed the rocket and sent the Industrial Revolution into orbit.
This is locomotion. This is what George Stephenson built 4 years before the rocket in 1825. So this isn't the rocket, and rocket wasn't the first. This is a beam engine going for a walk. In fact, it's two little beam engines. And driving this is like driving a colliery winding engine. The only awkward bit is you've got to do two at once.
Before George Stephenson became known as the father of the railways, he learnt his trade by getting his hands dirty. Working as an engineer in the coalfields of northeast England, he was surrounded by winding engines which pumped out waterlogged pits. By miniaturising cylinders like this and fixing them on small high-pressure boilers, he created a simple piece of locomotive machinery. But Stephenson's real flair was for spotting other people's good ideas.
Stephenson was not that original. What he did best was draw together the ideas from other people. There's Murray's slide valve, not Stephenson's. Here's a boiler. This is a Trevithick boiler. A Fremantle valve gear, not Stephenson. It goes on and on. This is not pure Stephenson genius.
Stephenson's spectacular machine was financed by a group of local coal barons, but they weren't interested in providing passengers with pleasant-day returns. The locomotive was developed to replace the horse and shift their coal.
Nearly all the early experiments were concerned with industrial movement of goods, basically coal. They had a lot of coal, it was very heavy, it had to be moved, and an engine could do the job. But this was a great roaring, raging beast. Cinders coming out from the chimney, rattling over these very short lengths of track, and they made a huge impression.
Before fire-spitting machines took to the rails, man's greatest invention, the wheel, had been getting stuck in primordial sludge for years. Just south of Newcastle, industrial archaeologists have discovered a relic from the very birth of railways, a wooden wagonway. For centuries, horse-drawn wagons took coal from the pits to major rivers in the northeast. From there, it was shipped down south and abroad. Until now, not much was known about the technology of early rail. Incredibly, this 18th century wagonway has many of the features of its modern-day counterpart. The roughly hewn oak tracks with a gauge of 4'2" are fitted to even more basic sleepers. As today, guide rails are used to prevent derailment, but the most remarkable feature are the crude points. No moving parts here. Early railway workers had to heave the wagons from track to track. By the early 1800s, metal was already beginning to replace the wooden wagonway, but the first iron rails stopped some engines in their tracks.
One of the great disadvantages of the early locomotives was they tended to break the track. The track was cast iron in short sections, the locomotives were unsprung, and they would shatter the cast iron rails quite easily. There was a natural conundrum that you really wanted the weight of the engine because that could pull more weight itself. It had a diesel. However, too much weight then broke the track. And it took really a lot of experiments and a lot of time to get over that natural problem.
As track developed, George Stephenson's son Robert was making his own improvements. In 1829, he created a truly revolutionary engine, the Rocket, and blasted locomotive design into the modern age. For the first time, slanting pistons replaced vertical cylinders, giving a smoother, faster ride. The Rocket set a world land speed record of 29 miles an hour, but such breathtaking velocity had a price.
At the opening of the Liverpool-Manchester, one of the great supporters of that railway and railways in general had been Mr. Huskisson, an MP, and he had a sad accident where he stepped in front of a train. Rocket did remarkably. They put him on it and rushed him to more or less a local hospital. He died, unfortunately, and that was something of a setback, but in a way it proved the effectiveness of the railway train to get him there so quickly.
In the same year Robert's flashy Rocket made its debut, his old dad designed a railway with much more basic routes. Boiling water still had its place, and not just for making tea. Inexpensive steam winding engines hauled coal wagons up hills locos couldn't climb. But if the stationary engines were cheap, gravity cost nothing. The loaded wagons freewheeled down the other side, their weight winding up the empties on a pulley system. This self-acting incline could move coal for miles.
The coal came from Blackfell, up to Blackenshill, and then away from Blackenshill, straight down to the Jarrow, ships. 9 or 10 mile easy, 9 or 10 mile. Self-acting inclines until it got down to the bottom of the Springwell Bank, and the locos took them straight away from there down to Jarrow Steeps. The man that designed this, he must have been a very clever man. And I think it would be George Stephenson. For the simple reason it was clockwork and very cheap concern. And they could never make improvements on it. They got to call through for a song, for coppers. In fact, one set in the morning paid for everyone's wage. There was about 200 men on this railway. Everybody's wage. One set through.
The Bowes Railway saw few changes in its long history. After the National Coal Board took over in the 1940s, the steam-powered engines were gradually replaced by electric motors. But what never changed was the danger of working next to spinning wheels and free-rolling trucks. Tommy Latch is as fighting fit now as when he dodged coal trucks for a living.
I was a wagon examiner. Every truck before it come onto the inclines I examined, looking, checking, wheels, frames, drawbars, everything. So if it was bad, I condemned it. And I could be in front of a coroner any bloody day. I could be in front of a coroner for letting a faulty truck go, and I wouldn't let it go. It was more than my job was worth. So therefore, I used to create safety.